Hey guys, generic YouTuber PRD Blackwatch here, and in today's video of how to play, we're going to be taking a look at Adriano Martello, also known as Maestro. He's one of those guys that came in Parabellum, which is about to sadly leave us into the ether as Operation Grim Sky comes around the corner. But he's left a nice impression on not only Pro League, but also the scrub play, such as casual and ranked, that we have to play. So, old Adriano is a 3 armor, 1 speed defender, and he is a member of the GIS alongside Alibi, who's the speedy hologram tossing woman who joined him in Operation Parabellum. Two of the most solid operators we've had in a long time, very balanced, very fun to play, and just a good breath of fresh air after the abysmal Operation Chimera. Um, People have differing opinions on how that operation went. I was not very happy with it at all, to be fair. But we're back to normality with these guys, and with Maestro, you have someone who can carry two primary weapons, funnily enough. The first one is the Alda 556 LMG. It's a very good LMG, actually, and the reason is that the recoil, whilst it's pretty harsh, it's only harsh because it has such a high rate of fire. The damage is pretty good, and the fact that you can put an ACOG scope on it makes him one of the more valued defenders. Now, if you can handle that recoil and you can put the ACOG on, you're going to be very well liked by your teammates. I personally don't like using the gun, but I appreciate how good it is, having watched the pros use it, having watched other people use it. But personally, I settle for the ACS-12, better known in other games and in real life as the AA-12. This thing is a massive beast of a gun. It's a fully automatic shotgun with 31 rounds in the magazine. Absolutely ridiculous. The damage isn't that great. The fire rate's quite good. The secondaries he had, he's got a strange little selection. They have two revolvers, but one of them is the Bailiff 410, which is based upon the real life Judge, which is a revolver that actually uses shotgun rounds. So it has the same destructibility as a shotgun if the shotgun were absolutely tiny. So you have that ability to make little micro destruction with the shotgun shells inside this revolver, but I personally, because I use the shotgun as a primary, I use the Keratos 357, which is based upon the Rhino, which is an Italian revolver. It's unique amongst revolvers because its barrel is actually on the bottom of the construction, so that the recoil is delivered into the arm rather than up and putting a lot of strain on the wrist. It's weird the way that it works, but the counterweighting, you can see the difference not only in the way that it handles in-game versus other revolvers, but if you see someone firing it, there's a definite difference to the way that they control the weapon because of that system, and it makes it look quite interesting. It's really weird that it's got this barrel at the bottom. Now he's got two secondary gadgets. There's barbed wire or the deployable shield, and his unique gadget is Compact Laser Emplacement Mark 5, or the CLE Evil Eye. Now this thing is basically a little indestructible. We say indestructible, we do not mean indestructible, we mean bulletproof until it opens its window turret camera thing. So it has a number of features. Its first feature is, as mentioned, it's bulletproof until the shutter that it has, which is a little protective shutter, is opened. It has thermal vision, so if someone smokes the place, you will still see them. And it has an axis similar to that of the Black Eye, except it has to be deployed like an ADS, so it has to be manually pressed up against the surface. You can't just throw this thing. As a result, it takes up a lot more space than the Black Eye does as well. It's a very obvious gadget, it's very loud, it's got a red light on it, and it's pretty big. It looks like a space helmet. But the reason why it is so loud and so big and so generally obtrusive is because if you open up the beloved shutter that I'm talking about, you can then zap your enemies. So it has a laser in it, and the laser just nips people. It deals small amounts of damage. It's 5 damage per tick, and it ticks, I think it's twice every second. And, you know, It's quite a lot of damage. It does have a cooldown, so if you shoot too many times in a small amount of time, you will overheat it and you have to wait for your thing to go back to normal. And once the shutter's open, all it takes is a single bullet into the exposed front part of the Evil Eye to destroy it, and then you have no more gadget. But generally speaking, it's useful for just annoying people, letting people know that you're there. It makes them think twice about focusing on a sightline, even for that split second they have to look away, because otherwise you could, in fact, shock them to death or zap them to death. Now, the reason why it's also effective is that you can put it down in positions where the enemy are going to be nowhere near it, other than, say, being at the opposite end of where it's placed, in which case it's a very good camera that they have to use pretty hefty amounts of utility to get rid of, because the only other way to destroy this, outside of using bullets when the shutter's open, and obviously that's dictated by how you use it, is to have it basically hit by explosives or to be hit by Maverick's welding torch. Also, Sledge's hammer can destroy it with a single swing. But the other option is to hit it with explosives. So the breaching round, one of the grenade rounds from Zophia's lifeline launcher, frag grenades, all those can destroy it. The difficulty with frag grenades, of course, is the fact that you have to get the Evil Eye within the radius of the frag, and you can sometimes have difficulty with that. If you're trying to time it for a direct impact, it's not always easy, and sometimes if it's placed high enough, the frag is actually going to be outside of the necessary damage radius to destroy the Evil Eye. So that's a lot of utility getting used on one gadget, and that's what makes him so powerful, because even if his gadget's taken out of the game, unlike Echo, it does take a lot more to do it. Echo's drone can be shot straight away. Yokai does not have the same defenses that the Evil Eye does. It's disheartening when you have someone coming in playing a sledge and they ruin your day by smacking both of your Evil Eyes within a blink of an eye, but it doesn't happen too often. And even when it does happen, with some intelligent placement, it can take them at least long enough that you've lit them up with laser lights until they get the hammer right down on your unfortunate robot friend. Now, Maestro's strengths are that he offers fantastic intel when his evil eyes are used properly. It's a utility soaked gadget because it can destroy breaching charges, it can destroy Thermite's exothermic charges, it can destroy Hibana's Kairos rounds, it can destroy drones, it can do all sorts of things. And that's why it can be so useful. It can be used for intel gathering, it can be used for damage, it can be used for breach denial, it can be used for general op denial towards the end of a push. If somebody has to run in, if they're getting ticked, it's a little bit more damage they've taken before the firefight with you, where you'll have that advantage, hopefully. It's also just an annoyance, and he's very good at being annoying. He's an operator like Echo in that he can just turn his gadget on for a second, zap folk, and usually, if it's Echo, they can't find it. But if it's Maestro, they can find it, and all they can do is stare at you whilst you shake the drones or shake the Evil Eye's head back and forth just to mock them. He's good at stalling because of that. His kit is quite strong. With all those weapons together, he definitely has a good set to choose from. But unfortunately, he does have some weaknesses. He's only got 2 chances. So once he's placed his Evil Eyes down, if he's made the wrong decision about positioning, it becomes very difficult to go and retrieve that gadget and reposition it. Unlike Yokai, who has essentially the rule of the roost of the entire map because of the mobility of the drone, you cannot do that as Maestro because you're stuck. Once the Evil Eye's down, it's down, unless you go and pick it up again, and then you're putting yourself in danger. He's also relatively easy to counter, even if none of the operators have explosives or any of the hard counters. Thatcher and Twitch both soft counter the gadget, so Thatcher's EMPs will disable it for a short period of time, and Twitch's shock drone will disable it when hit on the housing for a short period of time. And unfortunately, like all operators who rely on being on a camera to use their gadget effectively, he's pretty at risk when he's actually using the gadget and getting the most out of it because of his stationary position and his lack of self-awareness when he's in that position. So With the Evil Eye, you just got to watch out for its placement. If you're putting it right next to an entry point, you have to then consider the fact that if they have a sledge, your gadget is essentially done before it even got to live, breathe, and take in life to the fullest, because you've sent it to premature death. So be intelligent about that placement. Think about the different uses that you want to have it for. Do you want to put it in a position where you're going to be trying to counter a hatch breach or a wall breach? But in which case, if it doesn't work out, you're then going to be sitting without that gadget to be maybe placed in a hallway as an intel thing or as a denial thing for later pushes. Are you going to use it for intel? Are you going to use it for breach denial? Are you going to use it for damage? There's all sorts of things that you need to consider when you use the Evil Eyes. And as a result of that, you need to basically prioritize. If you're on a site and say, let's take Armory on Clubhouse, do you prioritize blue for denial? Do you prioritize having one on site to deal with people who manage to get in if you don't know where they are on site? Do you prioritize the hatch? Do you prioritize the tunnel? There's lots of different things you have to pick from. If you prioritize the hatch, you could potentially deny the hatch breach. But once that hatch breach has been denied, the Evil Eye has no real use up there. It's sitting in a room that doesn't get a lot of traffic unless people have breached the hatch. So you've taken your gadget out of play, essentially. And position it intelligently in terms of where it will be more or less vulnerable. The example of it being right next to an enemy entrance is that if you do put it next to an enemy entrance, it is going to be naturally more vulnerable to things like Sledge and things like Maverick. And with the new season coming, Maverick is going to be in almost every single match, I foresee. So the strongest way to use this gadget from now on is basically try to put it outside of the line of sight of the enemy for as long as possible, or at least put it far away from their immediate zone. So if it's in a corridor, at least put it at the opposite end of the corridor so they have to walk a bit before they get to it and get to deal damage to it. Use a technique called the Speedy Whip. Now, strange name for it. The Speedy Whip is basically when you zap someone and they notice you. So say you've been zapping them and they've been unaware, they will start firing at you. So the Speedy Whip turns the camera around, and when it's facing away, it's actually quite difficult to hit the main piece, even if the visor's open. So you want to use this. It's especially useful on PC because of the high sensitivity with the mouse. You flick yourself away and you hide the most vulnerable part of the gadget, so they have to either hit it very quickly or they have to get around to the exposed part. It's more difficult to pull this off when you're facing off against multiple people, admittedly, unless you can get it to a higher spot and then basically aim it straight up in the air. But even then, there's a slight exposure on either side. But if you can get it right, you're going to keep your gadget alive much longer than you would if you just stared at them and hoped that they wouldn't hit it by the time you'd manage to get your visor back down again. Stay vigilant, hop in and out of the gadget. Don't be sitting on it the entire round, because you don't want to get caught out on sight by someone who's rushed in knowing that you're on the Evil Eye and not contributing in person. It's always a bit annoying to use these gadgets where you're required to be stationary and essentially in a totally different position, but they do add a lot to the game and they do have a lot of uses that are worth being that vulnerable. You just got to be smart about where you place yourself. Don't be sitting in traffic areas, don't be sitting in obvious places. Even if you have to go off site, that's fine. Just be close enough to the site that if things do go badly, you can get there. Or alternatively, one of the things I like to do is I actually place an Evil Eye on the site for some sites where I cannot viably stay there, so that I can at least have a bit of a presence if I'm forced to run back before I have to run back. The other thing to do is basically just to ask yourself the question, is this action I'm about to take worth me losing my gadget? Is your meme shot to thermite in the balls worth you then losing that gadget? As funny as it can be, sometimes you just can't shoot people in the balls. So, weigh up the pros and cons, lads. Weigh up the pros and cons. Take out drones if you feel like it, especially shock drones, because shock drones will be annoying if they manage to tick you, because you're basically getting your toy taken away from you, and unfortunately you can't dispute that. So just zap them before they zap you, and then you remove the problem. It's a very big hitbox anyway. The Twitch drone isn't exactly a small piece of kit to destroy. It's a good counter for Glaz. So if you know they've got a glass and you know he uses certain angles, feel free to stick an Evil Eye in there so you'll see exactly where he is when he's running through the smoke. If you put it on border and you're defending the lockers, then all you need to do is put one within the locker's push where they would likely put down the diffuser. Sometimes they'll bring a glass there, and as they go to the doorway and the external wall, just have an Evil Eye facing towards that and just zap them. You can also, if you're feeling really cheeky-breeky, go to CCTV, shoot out the bottom of the wall, and then essentially use that little bottom of the wall as an extra point of shooting where you can put your Evil Eye and zap through and destroy exothermic charges without immediately drawing attention to the fact that there's one outside, maybe stuck to the wall externally. If your drone is, or sorry, if your Evil Eye is about to die, zap the bastard who's about to do it. If Ash is standing there with a breaching round launcher in her hands and she's just shot one at you thinking this is going to be lovely and the fireworks are about to go off, just lay into her, because it doesn't matter, because you're going to lose it anyway. So just get that damage in, get as much value out of it as you can before you have to say arrivederci to your lovely drone. Consider putting them outside. Don't always do it, because again it exposes it to the elements and Sledge and Maverick, who will be running riot in Grim Sky. But sometimes it does work. There's a spot on border where you can open up the door out to the balcony next to office and just crack it basically right outside the door, and in doing so you have a perfect spot to counter people who are repelling or who are looking at the window or who feel like taking out the wall with an exothermic charge. But once again, you're leaving it exposed to people who have close range counters or any real kind of counter. But if it works, it works. Use sneaky spots, use high spots, and use hard to reach spots. If you had difficulty getting up to that place where you put the drone, then it likely means that all these other operators who would otherwise be better spending their utility elsewhere are having to waste it on your gadget because it's just that bloody annoying. That is the power of Maestro. That's what he brings to the table that other operators just don't bring to the table. Have fun with Maestro, guys, because honestly I think he's an operator that people have been wary about using because he does take a bit of time to get used to. His guns aren't the most forgiving for new players. I totally understand that. I basically conceded the fact that I would not and cannot effectively use the Alda. As much as I would like to, as much as I think stylistically it's a very nice gun, I like the noise of it and all that kind of stuff, I just can't get used to it, so I use the shotgun instead. And it works out well for me. I enjoy using pistols, and the revolver, the Keratos, is a very, very strong pistol. It's only 6 rounds, but the damage it deals is fantastic, and the recoil is next to non-existent. So best of luck, guys. Apologies for the long video. I kind of rambled at the start for a bit, but I'll maybe cut that down. Dos vidania, everybody. Bye-bye.